Hello and welcome to In Conversation With, the monthly podcast series brought to you by the team that produce Global Cosmetics News. Will 2021 be the year that the indie-pioneered clean beauty movement grows up? COVID has undoubtedly propelled wellness to the top of consumer minds. The industry is now worth $1.5 trillion globally, with an annual growth rate of 5 to 10%. As the cosmetics industry prepares for an increase in both purchase of product and service, how can the clean beauty movement protect its integrity as it scales? To help me answer these questions and more, it is my pleasure to introduce this month's panel. Hello to Paola Pérez, Strategic Marketing Manager, Global B2C at Lubrizol Life Science. Hello to Dominika Minarovix, co-founder at Bybi Beauty. Anna Brightman, co-founder at UpCircle Beauty. And Eva Yovchev, co-founder and CEO of the Good Face Project. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, Siobhan. Great to be here.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Hello.
Paola, let's start with you. With regards to ingredient sourcing and formulation, what are the social drivers impacting clean beauty products in 2021?
In my opinion, from the ingredient supplier standpoint, it's important to recognize that clean beauty first is about safety, sustainability, and transparency. So when you ask about social drivers, we envision there are three drivers. First, there is a new definition of purpose. The pandemic has brought a new consciousness that has a spotlight purpose over profit. So it's a more holistic approach to sustainability, to clean beauty, that aims to encompass social, environmental, economic value. This purpose, from our perspective, is expected to remain as a core part of corporate strategies, looking for global welfare and for the well-being of both customers and employees. Another social driver that we had spotted is the new generations. Millennial and Generation Z consumers are driving the industry for sustainability view, as they are extensive product user, premium buyer, digital influenced, and are increasingly influencing the skincare category. They are going to lead and be the trendsetters in this clean beauty and environmental awareness. As younger generations have to deal with this harsh reality of climate change, they are going to be more demanding, and they are going to expect more from beauty industries, from beauty brands, and of course from the ingredients suppliers. This is what I see as the two main social drivers.
And Dominika, at Bybi Beauty, what are you seeing as the social drivers in 2021?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think the pandemic has really accelerated people's consciousness over their skin well-being. I think that the clean beauty movement has always been rooted in, I guess, a slightly misrepresented fear of synthetics. We are, I guess, a clean beauty brand, but we don't necessarily label ourselves as such, because I think that the term generally has had a lot of negative connotations and a lot of fear mongering associated with it. But I think it's kind of slightly being transformed into a view on like healthy personal care, more so than necessarily bashing synthetics, which I think is a really positive thing. So as you kind of said in the intro, like clean beauty is growing up a little bit. And I think the pandemic has really accelerated people's consideration of their wider holistic well-being. And a lot of people link, skin health and, how your skin appears to, how their general well-being is. So I think we're seeing a demand for things like probiotics, a lot of adaptogens, a lot of trending ingredients from, I guess, more supplement or food-based industries filter down into beauty that we've kind of always anticipated, but I think the pandemic has definitely accelerated it. A lot of people are thinking about how they protect their skin barrier, how they nurture their body's largest organ, which is their skin. So we're getting asked a lot of these kind of questions. And without a doubt, the consumer is savvier than they've ever been before. So they have a really deep understanding of ingredients, what they do want and what they don't want from formulas. A lot of, consumers now understand basic INCI lists and really understand how to derive value from those INCI lists. So I think we're dealing with a conscious and quite intelligent consumer coming out of COVID. And I think sustainability is table stakes now. I think if you don't have a view on how you're trying to protect the planet or improving your internal processes, you're just going to become irrelevant as a brand. So I think that is super important. And I think when we think about clean beauty at Bybi, we think about clean energy, clean supply chains, more so than really focusing too much on ingredients. So personally for me, I'd like to see that conversation quite move away from synthetics. And I think that the pandemic as a whole has been such a key driver in those kind of like social levers as well.
And at UpCircle Beauty, Anna?
I think that, as both Paola and Dominika have mentioned, I think these new generations are bold and unafraid to make decisions different to their parents. They're questioning, they're pretty demanding, to be frank, which is not a bad thing. I think, of course, the term clean beauty is an umbrella for lots of other slightly wishy-washy terms that are open to misuse and greenwashing. There's no set definition, therefore there's no set standard. But it is these overall, ideas of wanting to be more conscious, this return to simplicity, I think, and quality over quantity, which perhaps I think those two things are coming to head at the same time at the moment. You've got really polarizing businesses. You've got, look at the fashion industry, for example. I think that often is a little bit behind the skincare industry. You've got, on the one hand, brands looking at, circularity in borrowing schemes through apps and returning, just renting clothes essentially. And then you've got the likes of Misguided and Pretty Little Thing and ASOS just on billboards everywhere you look. So there's different types of consumers, most definitely. But I think under the heading of what we're discussing today, the main thing is that consumers want to be able to trust that the brands that they are choosing to purchase from represent their ethics, but are also putting out products that work as well. Because if you're going to be choosing less products and going to be willing to spend more money on them, then not only do they need to match your ethics, they need to actually do what you bought them for in the first place. So I think it's again, in light of the pandemic, this focus on self-care and looking after yourself from the inside out, and mental health awareness and things like that are also a contributing factor to the fact that we're having this conversation today.
And consumer trust, are they the social drivers leading people to the Good Face Project, Eva?
Of course, Siobhan. We started the Good Face Project so that we could answer consumer questions, and very, very quickly actually realized that the brands have a tremendous need for internal tools that help them always lead the conversation towards transparency and quality. And very, very quickly actually created a tool that is called the Good Face Formulator, and helps brands formulate to whatever restrictions are important to them, whether that's to the retailer or the regulatory restrictions within the countries that they would like to enter, or their own code of ethics, if you will, when it comes to ingredients, their own restrictions that they would like to impose on themselves. And in conversations with brands that are using the Good Face Formulator, and among them are some of the leading brands in the United States and suppliers globally, actually, we find that now, from their point of view, their consumers are starting to not necessarily be so focused on clean, but because they have grown so increasingly educated, as Dominika pointed out. And because the consumer has really started to understand the difference between, safety to my personal health, environmental implications, and other ethical considerations, now actually the consumer is starting to ask a lot of questions that have to do with ingredients that they weren't able to ask about 3 or 5 years ago. And to us, actually, the conversation around clean very much gets reshaped into conversation about ingredient transparency and ingredient quality, the two kind of hand in hand. And one goes towards, of course, answering the clean question, but the second one goes towards answering how does it apply to my particular skin? How does it apply to my need? Because I have eczema and I would like to not have irritation when I use this product, or I just had a baby and I'm having hormonal dryness in my skin, and so on and so forth. So beyond actually delivering the quote unquote clean, which of course I'm advocating is actually becoming much more about ingredient transparency, the consumer is asking deeper and deeper questions about effectiveness that brands will find themselves needing to answer part and parcel of the whole conversation of the product as a whole.
Paola, what are the key digital drivers assisting ingredient sourcing and formulation of clean beauty products in 2021?
I think that these drivers are very aligned with what Eva already shared. It's about communication and education to the consumer. So digital will increasingly be used as a tool to support the beauty industry sustainability initiatives. What has happened is that COVID-19 has magnified the beauty's dependence on digital to engage consumers, to educate consumers. We see that the digital beauty consumers prioritize ethical features, desire sustainability, source ingredients, ethical practices across the whole supply chain, and of course, keeping in mind the water efficient processes in the production. So the consumers are vocal on social media and they are spotting the ingredients. They are also criticizing beauty companies if they don't see they take actions or they take a position related to clean beauty. So this is all about education and communication. That's why beauty brands rely on digital content to supplement transparency and consumer educational initiatives. And they are using the social media. Brands are also using the websites to communicate their vision around sustainability and their projects. Actually, clean beauty players that share how they formulate, that what kind of ingredients they use, have gained consumer trust ahead of the rest of the industry's adoption of clean beauty. So they took the lead for this clean beauty movement. Also, aligned to the Good Face project and other projects that are helping consumers to scan bad ingredients, what formulation is behind, what is the process, the purpose that each brand or company has taken to create that beauty product. So it's about the digital driver is the consumer, is helping them to take decisions for them and for the environment.
And Dominika, how is digital supporting your business in 2021?
Well, I think what we've seen is that I guess previously we were quite reliant on doing things face to face, pre-pandemic and pre-2021. And I think digital has given us a great platform to amplify the message around our definition of clean and some of our values and able to reach such a larger audience at scale now. Whereas I think, in our minds, a lot of events, a lot of content streams, a lot of ways of disseminating content, we focused on offline channels, but they were always quite limiting because obviously they're limited by number of people, geographies. It's a lot bigger commitment for someone to, come in person. Whereas I feel like we're able to grow our content platform so much to such a broader audience in 2021 because people are so comfortable, attending things like Zoom webinars and Zoom conferences and engaging with content online. And I also think that definitely in the first half of the kind of pandemic and the end of 2020, people had a lot more time to kind of be sitting and scrutinizing things on social media. We saw, massive engagement proliferation on social at the start of the pandemic, particularly, with people being at home and kind of having more time on their hands. So I think that the general use around social media and digital devices has accelerated as well. And I think from a product perspective as well, things like, blue light is on the radar of a lot of consumers given the amount of time that they are spending in front of digital screens. So I think from a product development perspective, it's thrown out some really interesting concepts and ideas as well for the consumer. But I think as a brand, we've just seen, such a movement and engagement online, which has been great in order for us to kind of accelerate our growth and share our message to a broader audience.
And at UpCircle Beauty, Anna, what are the digital drivers assisting your business?
Yeah, it's funny listening to Dominika speak there because I think the last time I saw her in person, we were both absolutely shattered in an airport in America doing a...
Oh, yes. God, was that the last time?
I think so, yeah. Trying to go to loads of events to support our respective launches into the States. And I think this whole year has just proven that actually you can do it all from exactly where you're sat through a computer, which is big for founders like us who are just being pulled in a million different directions, but want to say yes to every opportunity and be wherever they need to be in order to see their brands grow. But I think one of the key things that we're looking into at the moment in terms of digital drivers is the power of skinfluencers or influencers generally. I think we're still a relatively young brand. We've got to be considerate with our budgets and stuff, but I think it's there's a reason that brands are willing to put so much money behind having ambassadors, I guess, digital ambassadors online using some pretty massive audiences through social channels that they've built as channels by which they can back their favorite brands or talk about ingredients that they love or don't love or what works for one skin type or another skin type. And these influencers fall under many different categories these days with, of course, massively varied audiences, which there are pros and cons to whether you want to go for macro or micro or a mixture in between. You've got the real skincare savvy, they absolutely know what they're talking about types like Skincare by Hiram. And then you've got those that are much more into, body positivity and moving away from these awful filters that are just being chucked on absolutely everything, which again is kind of in opposition to TikTok, which is also a whole new platform that I think some of us are having to get to grips with because that one's not going away anytime soon. People like Nelly London, for example, that fall under a different kind of category of influencer, but have interesting parallels that can be drawn for a brand like mine, who really pride themselves on real beauty in its many varied forms and not using Photoshop and showing diverse ages and skin types and people. Essentially, I want the people that are shown on my social channels to be reflective of my customers, and I know that our customers are extremely varied. So going back to kind of focusing on the question, I think that the use of influencers and the opportunities that can afford for brands of varied scales is a really interesting area of focus for us at the moment that we are trying to navigate.
And the Good Face Project, it is a digital business, Eva. What is driving the business forward in 2021?
A very good question. For us, the growth is happening very, very quickly, and it's driven by retailers demanding more and more and more from brands. Basically, in the United States, clean beauty was, something that, of course, leaders like the detox market and Credo Beauty pioneered as in the retail format. Some of them popped up more than 10 years ago. While 5 years ago there were just a handful of stores that had a clean or conscious or blue beauty category. At this point in time, virtually all retailers in the US have a category like that. The growth, both on their web storefronts and physically, is happening in those categories. So however much we speak about clean being a misnomer and something that is becoming quite polarizing and tired, quite frankly, retailers are actually driving tremendous attention for the consumer and are almost creating the trend to intensify as such. And what we see from that as a corollary is that brands who need to comply with all of the retailer restrictions that are really all over the map. Sephora has one restricted substance list, Target has another, the detox market has a third one, Grove Collaborative has a fifth. So there's just such variety in what is important to each of the retailers. But if a brand wants to be viable in the United States, really the only lever that brand has, the only two levers that brand has is, direct to consumer, its own of course, digital assets, and to be carried in distribution, in major distribution. And that second lever is really, really hard to grow with unless you comply with the restrictions. And in that sense, what we're seeing actually is that brands are needing to find the tools that will guide them through the whole, multidimensional data cube that becomes the consideration of complying with all of the requirements of each of the retailers. And for us, actually, that has sparked tremendous growth in the participation of brands in our platform. We have brands who come to us and they completely reformulate their product lines. We have others that use our platform to launch their newest product lines after formulating them in our SaaS tool. And we have a third category that uses our platform to generate the fact base that its products actually meet all of the restrictions, all the disparate restrictions that are out there, and actually to propagate its growth with retailers that have established these clean categories. So for us, it has been, the year has actually been fantastic, because as a tool and as a company that helps brands succeed in this really, really complicated conversation around ingredient transparency, we don't need to fly to brands. We don't need to go and meet with them in person. We're having many, many Zoom calls and conversations, and our customers are actually closer to us today than about a year ago. And I believe that that has been the benefit for most B2B businesses out there.
And talking ingredients transparency, Paola, what are the critical environmental factors impacting the ingredients and sourcing and formulation of clean beauty products in 2021?
Yeah, it's a good question. In 2021 and in previous years, different drivers are affecting or influencing the formulations and the ingredients productions. But when it comes to environmental drivers, everything related to green chemistry and circular economy. In Lubrizol Life Science, we follow the guidelines of the green chemistry and also try to develop projects aligned to the 5 R's: the refuse, recycle, reuse, reform, reduce. I mean, there are different theories around 5 R's or 7 R's, but the point is that we try to follow this mindset and this philosophy of circular economy, any production or innovation related to ingredients and formulations. So what we have done and we want to keep doing is to create ingredients that reduce low carbon footprint, that reduce waste, that reduce the amount of energy consumption in any of the production process, but also from the ingredient supplier standpoint, it's not also about the production, it's also about the benefits that the ingredient can supply. For instance, multifunctionality. One ingredient can provide not only the texture or a good sensorial, but also a good performance. That's the multifunctionality that the ingredients must supply. And we do that in Lubrizol Life Science. So this is the full multifunctionality benefit, and also how we can create ingredients that at a lower dosage provide high efficacy, sensory, and stability to any formulation. So those kind of attributes are very important when it comes to formulate clean beauty products, and also enabling formulations up to 95% or 98% of natural content derived. So those are the actions that we follow to create new ingredients. And also, as you said, Siobhan, in the introduction, and the other panelists have said, another driver is the COVID-19. Perhaps the development of sustainable initiatives have been postponed due to COVID-19, but at the same time, the pandemic has created a renewed urgency to act, and it's one of the main drivers. So we expect that different or many brands are going to take action and see the environment as more important than before. We spot some researches from different sources, but one that I remember is from Euromonitor. They say that in 2020, 47% of consumers globally believe that climate change will impact their life in the future more than it does or it did in 2019. So the realization that negative environmental changes are happening, that pollution, blue light, bacteria or some viruses can impact directly the health is going to be more present in consumers' mindset and brands' behavior. So all these things are going to influence in a strongly way how companies create new products and create clean beauty formulations.
And for UpCircle, Anna, what are the crucial environmental factors driving your business forward?
Well, of course, our entire ethos is centered on bringing the circular economy to the skincare industry. We were told not to do it by lots of mentors and people who've been in the industry much longer than us, because they thought that tackling issues of waste in the beauty industry were two completely separate things that were just never going to marry up. That consumers weren't ready, retailers weren't ready, don't do it, it's too soon. Cool idea and everything, but just stick to the other tick boxes, stick to organic, stick to natural, stick to recyclable or recycled packaging, vegan, cruelty-free. Don't try and take this next step with regards to what we actually chose to ignore them by doing, which is that we upcycle byproducts into every single skincare formulation that we put out. So that's our focus. I'm very, very glad that we did it, because I think that the huge success that we've had in a relatively short period of time is testament to the fact that, you know, we're doing something completely different. It's pioneering, and it kind of stands out from the crowd. Sure, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's absolutely fine. But I'd rather have a smaller, incredibly loyal and passionate following than a bigger audience who kind of, yeah, they like the brand, but they don't love it. So yeah, that's definitely our focus. We've now salvaged and reused literally hundreds of tons of ingredients that would otherwise be destined to landfill. So that will continue to be our number one focus, alongside, of course, ticking all of those other boxes that I previously mentioned as well. Don't get me wrong, over the last year, it has been a challenge. Of course, byproducts rely on the functioning of other industries. As a very tangible example, our signature range is made from upcycled coffee grounds that we collect from cafes and restaurants all over the city. And over 70% of those coffee shops that we were partnered with have permanently closed. So, you know, we've had to draw back to our core entrepreneurial spirit and kind of problem-solving attitude in order to maintain our slightly more complicated supply chains and meet the increased demand for our products as consumers sit at home, save money on alcohol and makeup by wanting to focus more on their skincare. So it's challenging, and new product development takes an awful lot longer for us because, you know, the testing of the ingredients and making sure that they are stable and of the same quality as those that are, in inverted commas, fresh, is difficult. It's more difficult for us than other brands. We have to work extremely closely with our manufacturers, who have to back our vision to the end, because there's a lot of trial and error, there's a lot of experimentation, but I think what you get at the end is a product that's got this real unique provenance and a kind of special story behind it, which we can see through the ways in which people choose to talk about us, for example, on social, is what really sticks in people's minds. You know, it's oh my God, I bought this new toner, but it's made from chamomile stems that are left over in the separation of the flowers and the leaves in the production of making chamomile tea. How cool is that? You know, it's completely different to anything else that they might have owned. So yeah, that's our primary environmental consideration, but that doesn't stop us also taking the lead with new initiatives as well. We see ourselves as constantly evolving. So for Earth Day, for example, this year we launched a full packaging return scheme. Of course, we're known for our circular use of ingredients, but we should really be applying that same circular attitude to our packaging as well. So it's a free post service. The products are at 30% cheaper than the normal retail price if you return the packaging to us. Then we refill it and you can start that cycle again infinitely with the same packaging. So this is another example of us trying to take this approach and apply it to as many different elements of our business and our brand as we possibly can.
And for your organizations, Eva, do you talk about the circular economy?
Absolutely. And what I heard here, both from the supplier and the brand ends, is really the same as what we encounter every day. We have a number of contract manufacturers and ingredient suppliers participating in our platform. And they're focusing on very, very, very much so on packaging and on upcycled ingredients. Upcycled is kind of the key word in ingredient suppliers, trends for the year. And both the suppliers and the contract manufacturers are really innovating to create not just the ingredients, but also the traceability of how these ingredients were created, so that they can enable the brands to produce products that are in line with the ethical and sustainability considerations of their consumer. So this is one thing that we see. And then the other piece that we see actually from brands is intensified innovation around what a serum, for example, looks like. Is it a bottle with a dropper in it, even if it's glass, or is it actually a suspension in a little package, and a powder in another package that the consumer mixes at home, and that targets both the sustainability front and the potency front of the product, because it doesn't have to decay and oxidize. So brands are actually brands that we see formulating in our tool, the Good Face Formulator, are not just using sustainable ingredients and ingredients produced in a sustainable way, but they're also pushing themselves to really, really innovate in terms of what the finished product itself looks like, to serve that really focused consumer who is leading the way. I very much, like Anna and Dominika highlighted, it is not every consumer that will value this type of product, but that is the consumer that is setting the conversation for everyone else. And that consumer is learning very quickly and is pushing the envelope further and further and further. And so we see actually this spark tremendous innovations at the formula level for brands that are using our platform to formulate.
And Paola, how are governments aiding or abetting the ingredient sourcing and formulation of clean beauty products in 2021?
I think it's not only for the ingredients, but for the whole industry that governments are taking action. But there is a difference because even that governments around the world are supporting projects to develop sustainable products. The rhythm and the transition are different among regions. And we saw that, for instance, in Western Europe, it was the pioneer to create this movement compared to other regions. But the governments are taking action and in a different way. And more than the economical benefits that for a beauty company in any kind of in any part of the process, in the ingredient part or in the development part, there are also penalties. So the governments are using economical benefits or penalties to reinforce this taking action mindset. Actually, governments are very aligned with something that scientists from the economical field and the chemist field have announced is the ecoeconomy. And this ecoeconomy is about that energy and materials are going to be the sectors with more changes in the future. For materials beyond the materials per se or the ingredients per se, the change will be in the structure of the industry, moving from linear model of extraction to a circular process, to this circular economy. So all this to mention that the governments are also influencing the economical field and the economical drivers. And we have seen that all type of brands has opportunities to collaborate with ingredient suppliers and packaging suppliers to develop breakthrough innovations. We have worked with different companies, it doesn't matter the size, to innovate, aligned to this circular economy mindset and create not only the formulation, but also the finished good. Also, what we have seen is that the governments are going to influence more the criteria or the guidelines for these definitions of clean beauty and sustainability goals. So as I mentioned before, it's about to be aligned with the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. That is something the governments are going to reinforce more when it comes to KPIs, when it comes to show the results, the result from any sustainable initiative. Part of the governments also, or more than the governments, the actors influencing the clean beauty, multinationals that are beginning to ramp up sustainability actions and innovations, follow what indie brands have already done. And as Eva said, also the retailers, beauty specialty retailers are other actors influencing the structure, influencing the governance around sustainability. So multinationals and retailers are part of this structure and move to the clean beauty faster than before.
And what have been the Brexit challenges at Bybi, Dominika?
Yeah, so in terms of Brexit, it has been, it has thrown up a few things for us. I think, moving goods around Europe has definitely become trickier, and it's put pressure on our supply chain from both, I guess, a distribution, but also raw material and packaging perspective as well. So we've seen the cost of goods going up, and I think that we've had to be more savvy in terms of how we're looking at economies of scale and unit economics. So we tried to lock in a lot of prices pre-Brexit, and I guess just focusing on maintaining our current cost of goods, which has proven to be trickier. We're trying to also move a lot of production to the UK, which is in line with our sustainability mission anyway. So that is kind of tandem commercial and mission-led. But I think definitely it threw up a lot of things that we weren't anticipating, and still even kind of end of May, we're having a lot of issues distributing goods, finished goods within Europe. So still a work in progress, to be honest.
And UpCircle Beauty, Anna?
Yep, completely agree with Dominika. Been a bit of a headache, to say the least. Yeah, we pretty much had to halt most of our distribution of our products in Europe whilst we figured the situation out. We have seen a lot of brands at a similar size doing similar things to us, increasing their prices. We will do everything within our power not to do that. So we've actually opened an entire new warehouse in Ireland, which has pretty much solved the situation for us. But the speed with which we had to do that and the extent to which we had to figure things out on our own, I mean, really, there was no guidance whatsoever. And no one seemed to have a clue what was going on, which made things infinitely more difficult. So we basically put that right at the front and center of our priorities, because it was evident quite swiftly that if we couldn't get a new fulfillment situation sorted out in Europe, then we were going to lose a massive portion of our business. So, new product development, all of that kind of stuff, sadly, went to the back of the pile whilst we sorted that situation out. So I'm pleased, to be honest, that we are a brand that's at a scale that we are, so that we can be nimble and that we can, think fast and act quickly, because it was, very, very difficult with not really anyone to point us in the right direction other than ourselves. So I'm pleased that that's now sorted. We launched that about a month ago now, and things have been infinitely easier since. So onwards and upwards, but a tough challenge, that's for sure.
And at the Good Face Project, Eva?
To us, because we study all of the regulations in order to input them in the formulator tool that we have, it's very clear. Regulators very, very, very rarely lead. They pick up the signals from society, and at the very high level, most likely the needle will move fastest on the sustainability front, because of course, the climate change imperatives that are globally adopted, and thank goodness the United States is catching up to them again. But on the other fronts, where we're speaking about transparency, about effectiveness and safety profile to the human health of the ingredients, we very rarely see the regulators actually leading the conversation. The conversation is led by brands and retailers in the service of the conscious consumer. And we very, very often see movement towards these better legislations, if you will, quite honestly squashed by the lobbying arms of the big beauty companies. And that will continue to happen as long as they find a renewed buoyancy in their models, in their business models, in their existing brand portfolios that is circled around the newest products that they have launched, which are quite in line with the conscious beauty and clean beauty movement. So that's what we see on our front.
Indeed. And finally, Paola, what could the clean beauty movement look like in 12 months' time?
I think it's very aligned with we have already with share. It's about moving from clean beauty itself to a more holistic approach, to a more conscious beauty definition. It's integrating different aspects, not only understanding the consumer's needs, but also the environmental impact. So conscious beauty is not only takes a personalized approach to understanding individual needs. It's also about evaluating the impact in terms of ethical and environmental impact to any production, to any purchase with credentials such as safety, transparency, ethical sourcing that are prioritized. In Lubrizol Life Science, we have something called the Forcy Lab. Forcy Lab is the platform that provides forward-looking content by connecting future trends, consumer insights, and science to help our clients shape the future of beauty. And with this platform, we have seen that this holistic approach is not only about the product itself, it's about the corporate vision, what the brands are doing related to other topics like diversity, like inclusion. So yeah, we see that brands are influencing and shaping the clean beauty or this conscious beauty, but also different social movements are influencing the brands and influencing different kind of companies. So we see that this evolution these years and the upcoming years is about not only the production itself, the sustainability itself in terms of products, it's also about what kind of world or society we want to give to the next generations. So that's the evolution of this clean beauty.
And for you, Dominika?
Yeah, I think as I said previously, and you know, we've kind of talked about, I think it's time for the clean beauty movement to grow up a little bit and kind of move away from the roots of it, which is based in kind of synthetic bashing and fear mongering and talking about ingredients that aren't in your products. I think it's really important that we focus on, you know, what's in our products, what ingredients we are putting in, why we're using them, and really, you know, what the positive environmental impact is that we're focusing on. So I think just shifting the conversation around away from negativity and focusing on, you know, a positive outlook in terms of beauty, and you know, Anna mentioned about skin positivity as well. I think all of those positive movements are really what we should be focusing on, rather than the negative side of clean beauty, and I guess, you know, the fear mongering. So, you know, as a brand, you know, that's very much what we're focused on. We've never talked about the, you know, bash synthetics or demonized any ingredients. So that's already in line with, you know, the way that we already communicate to our consumer. But I think it's important that brands also start to shift that messaging, and retailers as well. You know, we're present in a lot of the retailers that have been mentioned. We're in Target, we're clean. We adhere to Target's clean standards. We adhere to Sephora clean as well. But I think for us, again, that is just nascent with the brand in terms of being natural and really using natural ingredients because we believe that they deliver performance. Again, it's not because we have a fear around synthetics. So yeah, it would just be great to see in 2021 and beyond the clean beauty movement being much more around positivity and skin benefits rather than a negative outlook on ingredients.
And for you, Anna?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, to be honest. I think it's really easy to scare people and it's really difficult to unscare them. And I think what you see a lot is brands that are focusing on one particular thing that bash other things as a means to kind of bolster their specific focus. But actually, I think what we discover the more we head into this world or we explore things like this is that there is never any kind of clean right answer. There are pros and cons to everything. So sure, UpCircle might choose to not use palm oil in any of their products, but that's not necessarily to say that I'm not open to arguments of others that do. I think that they can be quite compelling. Equally, preservatives. One person might be strongly against the use of preservatives, but I can guarantee there are some very strong arguments for them as well. So I think it would be really great to move away from this sort of attitude of we do this, so everything else is incorrect, because clean beauty as a term is, as I mentioned at the very start, it's an umbrella term that represents lots of wishy-washy things that can be used and interpreted extremely differently by individuals or people with set agendas, I guess. So it's not a term that we would actively use to describe our own brand, despite the fact that, of course, we are. So I think, yeah, as Dominika said, like seeing it mature or else, I guess, die off as a word will be interesting. I look forward to seeing how that develops. But in terms of moving away from the focus on ingredients, I'd love to see more development in packaging for our industry. I think that's what gives beauty and cosmetics generally its poor sustainability label, I guess, or reputation, I should say. And as a brand founder, it's the thing I find most frustrating because I can't really control it. I can't control innovation in packaging because I don't make it. So I have to just weigh up the pros and cons of what's out there on the market and the varied price points, etc. So I look forward to seeing more innovation in clean packaging in the future months.
And with that, I would like to thank my guests, Paola, Dominika, Anna, and Eva, for joining me today, and to you for listening.